You must tell me all your secrets. Remember, we must share everything together. Everything.
Do you wake from your finest fantasy only to return to your daily nightmare?
Mr. Wall. Yes. Mr. Wall.
Is your mother about to look younger than you do? Does the woman of your dreams
I love you. In my dreams, I love you.
still have a few doubts? Then it's time to take a stand. To break out of your dull, humdrum life and into Brazil.
You're so pleased you could make it right this way.
It's about flights of fantasy and the nightmare of reality.
We're all in this together.
Terrorist bombings,
I don't think it involves anything unsavory. You trust me, Jack?
and late-night shopping. True love
You don't trust me?
Trust you? Trust you? The man who hijacks my truck, loses me my job, has every security man in town looking for me? Of course I trust you.
I was only trying to help.
Yeah.
and creative plumbing.
There's your problem. Can you fix it? No, I can't.
From Terry Gilliam, director of Time Bandits, Jonathan Pryce,
Sam, what are we going to do with you?
Robert De Niro,
I came into this game for the action, the excitement. Go anywhere, travel light, get in, get out. Wherever there's trouble, a man alone.
Katherine Hellman, and Michael Palin.
We've always been close, haven't we?
Yes, Jack?
Well, until this all blows over, just stay away from me.
Brazil. It's only a state of mind.
We're all in it together, kid.
Hello again, and welcome back to Girls, Guts, and Giallo. This is Annie Rose Malamet, and today I'm here again with Tina Horn. Hi, Tina.
Hello. Ponytail flip that you can see, but they can't see because it's a podcast.
Tina was on the podcast some time ago where we did the thief, the cook,
the cook,
the
whatever. The sequence doesn't matter. The cook, the thief, his wife, and her lover.
Yes. And now you've chosen another British epic, or I guess it's not technically a British film, but it is.
Yeah. Well, Gilliam was born in California but then lived in England most of his life and has a very British, absurdist sensibility, partially from being part of Monty Python, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
And today we're talking about Brazil from 1985. So Tina, before we get into the movie, can you reintroduce the listeners to who you are, what you got going on?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I am, I do a lot of different things. And I'll just say who I am by listing the things that I do that I want you to check out. Because that's what identity is under capitalism. So I am the writer and creator of a sci-fi comic book series that is totally inspired by Brazil, which I hope we will get to talk about. My comic book series is called Safe Sex, or it is alternately spelled SFSX, because that has better SEO than Safe Sex. Although I'm very happy that people are out here typing safe sex into their search engines for all kinds of reasons. So Safe Sex has been published by Image Comics since 2019, and we just Image just published the collection of the first 7 issues, so that's called Safe Sex Volume 1 Protection, and you can pick that up wherever books or comic books are sold. And I also podcast. I host and produce a podcast called Why Are People Into That? That is all about sex, kink, gender, and love. I feel like I really want to have you on the show. I feel like maybe we should do, like, in October, we should just straight up do a, why are people into monsters? Like, we should just do, like, full monstrosity episode, or what, murder. Like, I just want to go, why is murder sexy?
Yeah, why does everybody want to be sex murdered? Why are people into that?
Why are people into being murdered or murdering, depending on if you're top or bottom or switch, murdered switch? I'm a murder switch.
I feel like I'm a murder switch too.
I believe that about you. Yeah. And so I do a lot of other writing, and I've been mostly a nonfiction writer before I got into writing genre fiction and comic books. You can read my reporting on sex culture and politics on Rolling Stone and Hazlitt and Jezebel and Playboy. And I'm just like every other schmuck. I just got a manager and an agent, and I'm trying to break into film and TV. And
that's why you moved to LA.
Listen, Tina Takes Tinseltown is in full effect.
I'm ready.
Thank you. And so I'm working on that. I'm excited about that. And I have been doing some, also just like every other schmuck, I feel like I'm doing like intimacy consulting and tech consulting. I'm very proud to have been the BDSM sex work consultant on the 2nd season of Pose.
Yes.
So there are like all the scenes in the Hellfire Club. I got to be on set and sort of like go up to Janet Mock and be like, with all due respect, madam, like I have a note that you're paying me to be here. So I will stay in my lane, but this is technically my lane right now because you asked me to be here. So there are like a few like little things about like being a professional dominatrix that I was able to like put into Pose, which I think Pose is one of the great television shows of like the past 25 years. So being able to be involved with that was really cool. And I hope to do more of that and like improve like BDSM and sex work and queer representation in like the pictures, the talkies. Yeah.
Yay. That's so exciting.
Yeah, man.
Thank you for the reintroduction.
Oh yeah, I have notes for Brazil, by the way.
I guess I do.
I need a time machine to like give Gilliam some notes. I don't think he would have listened to me.
No.
He certainly wouldn't have listened to me when I was like 2 when this movie came out. But
I don't think he would listen to you now either.
He would for sure not, even if I was like, I'm a time bandit, sir. And and I have notes for you.
Yeah.
He would dismiss me, I'm sure.
It's so funny because like when you were like, you suggested a few films to me, and
totally,
I know I can be my blunt Jewish New Yorker self with you, so I was just like, no.
Same.
Yeah.
I love that. No, it's good.
Yeah. Instead of just like, with some people, I have to be like, I don't know. Let's think of something else.
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah. But you threw a few other things out there, and one of the movies you threw out there was Brazil, which is a film that I never actually finished. So I was like, this is perfect. Like I want to do this for the pod. I mean, also because it's like so prescient right now, obviously.
It's very prescient.
We'll probably always be prescient.
Totally.
But it's interesting too, because you were like, okay, I rewatched it and I don't know if I like it anymore. And
totally.
I watched it and I was like, I don't think I like this. And so this is now, you have the rare honor of being maybe the second guest where I didn't really care for the movie. But
what was the first one?
Oh my God. The first one is Chasing Amy, but
oh, wow. Yeah.
This Brazil is a bit different because there are so many things about it that are great that I like.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and it's like not bad. It's like a good movie, but I have a lot of, I don't know.
I have notes.
I have feelings. So why was Brazil one of the picks for you? Like, can you talk about that in relation to safe sex?
I would love to. Yeah, well, so two things. First, I want to talk about when I first saw this movie and why I liked it so much when I was younger. And then, like, subcategory to that, I'd love to talk about why I think I have a different feeling about it now upon rewatch. Mm-hmm. And then I would love to talk about the ways that it did inspire safe sex, and those things still totally hold up. So that's good. I didn't feel like embarrassed and wanting to like retcon all of the like press that I've done where I've been like, what are the key influences of this movie, Brazil? But
you find out it's like maddeningly ableist or something, like in retrospect.
Yeah, we'll get to the issues again. Yeah. We're building the suspense about what our issues are. I feel like if anybody had seen this movie and like shares our like tastes and values and sensibilities, they probably already know what we're going to talk about, but still worth digging into. So I would also really love to talk about like the ways that it influenced safe sex. I don't even think that necessarily like I took it in a really different direction. So maybe we can even talk about what it means to like, maybe this is one of the things about like living in a world where we're like reckoning with our problematic faves, and like maybe one like productive or useful way that we can look at it is like, how can we take the things that we responded to, I don't know, before we were woke or, when we were literally children and didn't know any better. Or even the things that we like that are also alongside these things that we like took with a grain of salt or are taking with a grain of salt right now, and like how we can like, I don't know, like reanimate them in a new form. Reanimator, that would be a great. That would be
I love that movie.
Reanimator.
You can come back and do Reanimator.
That movie's flawless. No notes. I have no notes on Reanimator.
So yeah, let's get into it.
So I don't remember what year it was that I first saw Brazil. I was a teenager and it was the 90s. So the movie was like somewhere between 10 and 15 years old. And so was I. And I saw it at the Castro Theater in San Francisco. So I have very fond memories of, at any time, I imagine you probably feel this way. Like anytime you get a chance to like see a classic movie, like in a theater, like in a re-release or in like a new cut or whatever, or like at a film festival, like a classics film festival, you kind of like remember it really vividly. Yeah. And at the time I was a huge Monty Python fan. So all I really knew about the movie, and I'm a huge like sci-fi fan, and even specifically like a fan of sort of like a hybrid of like absurdist, usually British humor and sci-fi, like the Douglas Adams variety, right? So I think that like I knew this was a sci-fi dystopia made by one of the dudes from Monty Python. So I was like, I'm in, mainline this movie to me. And I loved it when I first saw it. And I think that as a kid, the things that stood out to me were, again, like the absurd humor, the kind of like, I don't want to say sophisticated slapstick, because I don't want to create like a class hierarchy of slapstick. Like there's one kind of like refined slapstick that's okay to like, whereas like dumb slapstick is like déclassé and uncool. But it does have a sort of like high like pretension level of like a Jacques Tati level of slapstick, right? Mm-hmm. So I loved all of that. I did love the dystopia. I am also just like a weird looking character actor gal, you know.
Yeah,
I'm here for that is like for better or for worse, that is like one whole side of my personality is just like, if you've got a character actor face, I'm like, unfortunately will like listen to you longer than I probably should. So like this movie is, I mean, the lead is Jonathan Pryce, who, yeah, again, upon rewatch, I was like, oh, I had such a crush on him when I first saw this, and now rewatching it, I'm like, why is this one of my types? Will I ever get over this?
Funny to me. I was like, I don't buy him as this character.
This like, yeah, the like schlubby, neurotic naif. I don't know what happened to me. I'll have to like be hypnotized to find out.
In the other episode we did, you also love.
Yeah, totally.
Fucking what's his name?
Yeah,
I forget the guy's name.
Yeah, her lover.
Yeah, her lover.
Yeah, the librarian. Totally. Yeah, so I mean, love Jonathan Pryce, and then you know this movie is like fucking chock filled with, it's like Ian Holm, Bob Hoskins, fucking De Niro,
a train of Tina's character actor crushes.
I guess so. Yeah, they're all and Michael Palin, who I will say right now is I was my favorite part of the movie when I first saw it, and remains my favorite part of the movie. He was always my favorite Python. I think his performance in this movie and like his character is like is absolutely perfect. Chef's kiss. So yeah, I like loved all of those things about it. You know, I anything, I mean, especially as a teenager, anything that was like had themes of like iconoclasm and like anti-establishment, I was like, sign me up. This is my thing. These are my people. So I loved all of that about it, and all of those things I still love, and those are definitely the things that influenced my comic book and my writing. And yeah, and then I think I had it on VHS, and then I, of course, because again, I am this like pretentious iconoclast, I like had the Criterion collection that had like 3 discs, and you know, and then especially like learning that, and I'm sure we'll get into this, especially when we talk about the ending. And it's funny to me that you would never watch it all the way through, because the ending is like the most famous part, and I think still like the most interesting part of it. Especially finding out that like not only are the themes anti-establishment, but then there's this like meta narrative around the movie where like it was like too anti-establishment for the establishment of the movie studios, and they were like, they like tried to suppress it, and they like again we'll get into the specifics of the ending when we talk about like what it means that they changed it the way that it's one thing to like give a movie a happier ending, but this is like so this is like really like powerful people telling on themselves to like make this ending the happy ending, you know what I mean? It's just like, so like, are you guys watching the movie? Do you get it? No, it seems like you don't. And yeah, so just like knowing that there was that narrative, and then when you get the Criterion collection, there's like the Love Conquers All version, right, which is the like studio cut happy ending, and then there's like the theatrical release, and then there's also another like Gilliam director's cut, and you know, I just like live for that shit.
Which so, I think I've only seen I want to say the theatrical ending. I haven't seen like the studio happy-go-lucky ending, and I haven't seen the director's cut.
So do you know what they changed?
No, I don't think so. Like maybe we should talk about it at the end.
Yeah, let's talk about it at the end. Okay, again, building suspense.
Building the suspense.
I've learned to do as a fiction writer. Building suspense. What are they going to talk about? Yeah, so it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting. And one of the reasons that even when I rewatched it and was like, oh God, about some things, I was like, no, this is still worth talking about on your show because
it totally is
pretty fascinating stuff.
Yeah, no, yeah. So let's get into it.
So that's like my story of like why I love it so much.
Great. Yeah. Amazing. So I'm glad you love it, and I'm glad that you know a lot about it because.
Well, so I want to ask you this.
Yeah.
When I guess you kind of already answered this, but like when I suggested it and you were like, yes, Brazil, great choice. Was it just that you felt like it would give you an excuse to finish watching it, or was there something about it? Because it is like much more, shall we say, it's like a much more like masculine kind of movie than like you usually have on the show.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
Like,
yeah.
It's not really horror. It has like some sexual elements and like gender themes somewhat, but definitely like not very usual for your show or your Patreon. So I'm curious like what your response was when we talked about doing this movie.
It's definitely not like as sexy as the movies I usually do, for sure. However, like when you said it, I was like, well, that's perfect because I sort of know what it's about, and I think that that's perfect to go with Tina's book. So I thought that would be a good. Before you said it was like heavily influenced, I was like, well, that just works because like it's sci-fi. Your novel is sci-fi, and I know that it has because the podcast is subversive and controversial film, right?
It is definitely that.
Yeah. So I know that this movie has a controversial history. So I was like, let's get into it. And also, I never do films like this because I'm really just like, it's very hard for me to do like any kind of Monty Python, like men doing things. Like it's hard for me to get into stuff like that. I think I don't have like a childhood connection with it also. So it's kind of like, I mean, like my dad liked Monty Python, but I never, it wasn't like a deep childhood connection for me where it's like, I can't get into it now. Cause like, obviously like I'm too far gone to like be able to get interested in it now. But yeah, I don't even have that like anchor to it. So I'm just kind of like annoyed by those guys. So, I mean, it's really just like it was not finishing it and not like getting into Terry Gilliam's films is like purely just a petty thing of just like they annoy me.
Have you seen or liked any Terry Gilliam films?
I've seen 12 Monkeys.
Yes. 12 Monkeys.
And Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. I've seen many times.
Fear and Loathing, yes. And
I've seen Tideland.
Have you seen The Fisher King?
I have. Yeah, but years ago, a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't seen that one in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, it's like widely considered his masterpiece, but I like also think that it is his best movie.
I mean, listen, like when I say it's like I wasn't bored ever when I was watching this. I wasn't bored. Oh my God. But like that's real. Like that's, for me, if something can keep my attention, like there's merit in that as well. So like I wasn't ever bored. I think the set design is amazing.
Absolutely. The production design, the like Terry Gilliam's production design is definitely like where he shines, and I think that's hard to argue with. It's very inventive, very unique. Like, you know that you're watching a Terry Gilliam movie, and like even with like Fear and Loathing being an adaptation of like such a strong voice and vision, like it's still clearly also a Terry Gilliam movie, and I do have admiration for that. I feel like Kubrick is another director that is really good at like adapting things that have like a very strong, like adapting like really strong source material and like also making it like unmistakably his.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely got that very specific Terry Gilliam / Monty Python milieu stamp on it for sure. But let's talk about it. I'm excited I'm excited to dissect it. So
cool. Let's do it.
Movie comes out in February 1985 in Europe without any issues. But when Gilliam tried to release it in the US, it ran into all this trouble because of the ending. So eventually Universal Studios acquiesced to Gilliam's demands. Yeah, so he waged a successful war against Universal Studios. The studio recut the film to portray a happy ending, like you were saying, where Sam gets the girl, so to speak. Yeah. And in order to get the film released, Gilliam took out a full-page ad in Variety, directed at the head of Universal, Sid Sheinberg. Gilliam corralled LA film critics to watch the film in secret screenings, even though there was an embargo on showing people the film. And he said that Universal were in such a flap, they immediately released it in New York and Los Angeles, and they had no posters. They had nothing. They had a Xerox copy of the artwork they were going to eventually make a poster of. That's all they had. And it did proceed to do the most business per theater of any film at that time. Amazing. So
nice.
The film was budgeted at $15 million. It grossed $9 million domestically. But 30 years later, it remains an extremely influential film. So, obviously directed by Terry Gilliam, if that wasn't clear enough. Written by him and also by Charles McEwen and Tom Stoppard. The film stars Jonathan Pryce, your crush. And also features Robert De Niro, Kim Greist, Michael Palin, Katherine Helmond, who's incredible in it as well.
So good. I knew you. I know you're going to have tons to say about her.
Oh, obviously, I love her. Yeah. Bob Hoskins and Ian Holm.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. So Gilliam developed the story, and he wrote the first draft of the screenplay with Charles Alverson, who was paid but was ultimately uncredited in the final film. And for nearly 20 years, Gilliam denied that Alverson had made a contribution to the script. But when the first draft was published, the original documents emerged, and Gilliam begrudgingly changed his story. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, what an asshole.
Right.
For sure.
So Federico Fellini, who's a director.
Ever heard of him?
Who Gilliam often cites as a defining influence on his style. So he almost wanted to name the film in the style of a Fellini film. So, like, some of the names that were thrown around were The Ministry of Torture, How I Learned to Live with the System So Far. And so that's why The Bourgeoisie Sucks, before settling with Brazil, relating it to the name of its escapist signature tune.
Mm-hmm.
Gilliam.
It also makes this movie very difficult to Google.
It's true. Yeah, you have to Google Brazil film 1985.
Yeah, totally.
Gilliam sometimes refers to this film as the second in his trilogy of imagination. So with The Time Bandits in 1981 and ending with The Adventures of Baron Munchausen in 1988.
Love that movie.
I haven't seen either of those.
That is the there's like I think, unless I'm getting it mixed up, I'm pretty sure that Uma Thurman is naked in that movie.
Ooh la la.
Yeah. Anyway, also an actress, but like naked. I mean, listen, it's Uma Thurman.
Yeah, right. So the big problem with the film at first not being released was a contract dispute over the length of the film also. So Gilliam delivered a film 17 minutes over what he was contracted to do. Because it was over the 2 hour and 5 minute limit. So the studio chopped it down to 94 minutes. But Sheinberg told the Los Angeles Times, "I don't want a happy ending. I want a satisfying ending." And he said that 52% of viewers responded negatively to test screenings. Sheinberg also felt that Gilliam, he hadn't directed enough films, so he didn't have the clout to be demanding a final cut. It was also like a masculine pissing war over it.
Clearly.
what else did I want to say here? The location where Sam was tortured is now an IKEA.
I saw.
Oh, and when it was released, people walked out of the theaters, which I thought was, I wonder why.
I mean, probably for all the same I mean, listen, all of these excuses, by the way, of like why they didn't want to release the movie are like they're so obviously
bogus. Yeah.
They're so bogus is exactly the word. They're just like, they reek of excuses for people who don't want to admit that something is like too anti-establishment or too like that actually like threatens the status quo that benefits the people who are in a position to censor or like you know, like keep the movie from like being released. You know, it's like, oh, it's 17 minutes too long. Like, oh, people want a different kind of ending. And it's like, so you're threatened by the message of this movie. And so, but you're probably not even like aware of it on a conscious level, but you just have this whole toolkit of things that you can say when something makes you uncomfortable.
Right.
Like, this is something that I have experienced firsthand, like being a creative professional, and like probably will always exist, but you know, we gotta keep like swinging, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like the sweet kind of, you know, I don't want to say irony, but like it's just kind of it's weird how the history of this movie like lines up with what the movie is actually about. I
do think it's ironic. I think it's ironic that you like you have a movie that is about exposing the hypocrisy and dysfunction of power and society, and like the systems that are supposedly making society run are actually like destroying people's souls and like keeping people subjugated. And then you have the people who benefit from the dysfunction of that society trying to suppress a message of like resistance, or even like there is another way, like you have within you. And you know, the still beautiful message of this movie is like the idea of like having an inner fantasy life that you use to escape from the crushing reality of society. Like, I think is a very beautiful theme. And like how like this particular character's like inner fantasy life manifests is like where a lot of my like issues with it come up, which we should get to.
100%. Yeah.
But yeah, that idea that like every single person has the power within them, with their imagination, to escape from those systems is a beautiful message. And it again, it like makes sense that people in power would be threatened by it, but it's also like, really, guys?
Right. Yeah, like you said earlier, really telling on themselves. And
exactly.
The Brazil theme song, I thought this was interesting. I don't know if you read this, but it has its own political baggage.
I don't remember. Tell us everything.
Yeah, so in 1939, Ari Barroso wrote the samba song Aquarela de Brazil, which translates to Watercolor of Brazil. The song landed in the U.S. in 1942. In the Disney film Saludos Amigos. Walt Disney had heard the song while visiting Brazil as part of FDR's Good Neighbor policy, which involved Brazil's president at the time, Getúlio Vargas, wanting to regard America as a friend, according to a BBC article at the time. The song and Disney film aimed to portray South America in a better light than just as quote-unquote feckless Latinos.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's also got some baggage.
Yeah, there's definitely a very interesting history that we don't have time to get into of like Brazilian culture, and specifically music being a form of resistance against the government and the status quo in the 20th century with like Caetano Veloso and but like anyway, it's interesting to think, even though those themes and also may I point out, like virtually any people of color are conspicuously absent, like from Brazil. You know, it's interesting to make a connection between, like, because the title of the movie is Brazil and like takes its title from this piece of Brazilian music. Like, it's interesting to think about like how those themes might be connected. But I don't think that Gilliam was thinking about them very much when he was making it.
I don't think so either, but it's definitely something we can think about.
Yay!
So
Totally.
let's get into the plot. So
Totally.
The movie begins, we get this text on the screen where it says 8:49 p.m. somewhere in the 20th century.
By the way, somewhere in the 20th, somewhere in the 20th century, I love. Great touch.
Yeah.
I really love it.
I mean, it's very much like his absurdist kind of humor, right? The other thing that...
And it immediately disorients you, right? Which is... Yeah.
Right. Well, also, like, the production design is not supposed to be any particular city. It's just...
Totally.
Yeah, it's just kind of supposed to be... It's this retro-futurist hell that is, like, nowhere in particular.
Totally.
So... when we get these like clouds, and of course we get the Brazil theme song, which Kate Bush covered at some point, which I thought was pretty cool.
Amazing.
There is, now we get this shot of like a TV in a television store. The guy on the TV is selling ducts. He's talking about ducts. And I thought this was significant. I looked up what the meaning of ducts might be, because I was thinking of like Roman aqueducts and like this idea of civilized society, and the Romans actually, like, their aqueducts being like a really important invention, but actually they were really disgusting. So I was thinking about that. But then I also looked it up, and I found this person's blog. They never named themselves, but I'm going to give them credit anyway. It's called thisruthlessworld.wordpress.com, and it looks like it hasn't been updated in years.
Oh, great.
Right. But this person had this interesting read of the ducts where they said, this clearly represents the oppressive role the Ministry of Information plays in every aspect of people's lives. The ducts also connect every corner of the city to the ministry. And all the other spaces to each other, meaning everything and everyone is part of the information network.
I totally agree with that reading. I mean, the film is filled with both, like the little, what are they called? Pneumatic tubes, where the little like messages come down the tube.
I don't know what they're called,
like,
but they're cool. The like mail tubes.
They're very cool. And and that's very that has a like kind of like cartoonish like feel to it, which I love. But then there's also like air ducts and like basically the civic infrastructure. All has like all of these ducts, and they're there's like exposed, like all the like walls are exposed, both in the like sort of like working class spaces that we visit, but then also the like higher up like wealthier spaces. They're like all exposed.
Even when we're in like a palatial setting, there's still these like ugly ducts. What were you gonna say?
Totally. And just so what you were saying about Roman aqueducts being both like a sign of the advancement of civilization, but like also actually disgusting.
Right.
I feel like that is definitely a theme, a really important theme of this movie. And I've definitely read that Gilliam like really kind of like wanted to expose that his own, that like the emotions of this movie come from like his frustration that all these systems that are supposed to make life more convenient actually like don't function very well. And nobody wants to admit it, because that would be like uncivilized, or it would be like we would have to admit that we actually like don't have it all figured out, and so everybody like ignores or just like puts like a, you know, like a nice like decoration on top of these like sort of like disgusting things that like they like both like expose and obfuscate the system. How's that?
No, absolutely. And like that is present, obviously present in the film, but I think that's, I mean, we can get into this more. We're like, we haven't even gotten to the even beginning of the movie yet, but it's
yeah.
I think that's part of like what bothers me about this movie is that it's a surface level analysis of the problem, I guess, to me. Like,
that's smart.
Like, it's a very kind of like white man, like, these systems are not functioning, and like we design them to function and they're not functioning, and it's like, actually they're designed to oppress you and make you lose your mind, I think is like what.
Man, I agree with that read 100%.
Yeah. You know, like that's, I think that's where my main issue with this comes in. So there's this guy.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Right.
Go on.
So, I mean, this opens though with a bombing, which is pretty cool. So the television sales shop gets bombed. It's decorated very appropriately for Christmas, of course.
Oh yes, I can't believe I suggested a Christmas movie. I hate Christmas, so.
Same, I fucking hate Christmas. And when I was watching this, I was like, God damn it, we should have released this for Christmas. But we're, you know, because I'm irreverent, of course, but this is a Christmas movie. We learn via like a news voiceover from a burning television that there have been these terrorist bombings throughout the city to oppose the Ministry of Information, which is this kind of like vague, shadowy entity, shadowy government entity. And Mr. Helpman, who will come back, which is a very funny name.
True. He's a little ironic.
Just a little bit. He is like talking about poor people in this very terrible manner, right? He's like, if these people would just play the game, they'd get a lot more out of life. Like very typical evil rich man speak. We see this like very kind of nerdy bureaucratic dude in what looks like a printing lab. And he kills a bug, and this sets off a series of events because he's typing these names up on these forms, and he changes one of the names from Tuttle to Buttle.
Mm-hmm.
And all of this is happening as he's watching the news broadcast that was playing on the burning TV. So there's also these like weird posters in his office.
Oh yeah, actually the propaganda, again, production design
on point. Yeah,
like most like is sort of the most like influential and like truly original like part of this movie. Like the omnipresent propaganda is really good.
Yeah, no, like there's one poster behind him that says "Loose talk is news talk."
Yeah, loose talk is news talk is brutal.
Yeah, that's brutal. We see this family at home reading A Christmas Carol. This is when we meet Jill, who's having a cigarette in the bath. And
love that.
I love it too. She's hot. Suddenly, a SWAT team of men in black, blow in through the ceiling and take the father of this family captive, Mr. Buttle.
And this is a very like working class like apartment complex.
Yes. And they like, you know, drill a hole in Jill's floor, which is the Buttle's ceiling. Mm-hmm. And they come down through the ceiling and they haul him off in this like elaborate straitjacket mechanism, which I'm sad to admit turns me on a little bit.
Don't be sad. Don't be sad. I mean, just I will also say. So now that we're getting this is nice because I feel like this discussion is like equal parts reminding me of the like micro and macro elements of this movie that I do still really love, and also reminding me of the parts that I'm just like eye roll, snore. Right. But like the the brutality of the law enforcement and accurate, how like is really good, and is also just like any movie that accurately depicts and in this case it's like literally, it's truly senseless. It's like a mistake, but also it's like a fucking bureaucratic mistake, and bureaucracy is the like Kafkaesque bureaucracy is a huge part of what is being critiqued even on a surface level in this movie, and like is worthy of critique. But also the idea that like even if it wasn't a bureaucratic error, this would like, and they were coming for the right person, like that would like still be bad. It's not just bad because it's the wrong man.
Right.
But yeah, the straitjacket is both, as I think both you and I have talked to J.B. Brager about, like the idea that like, like fascist bondage can be both like really hot and also really awful and wrong. So
yeah, I'm definitely more intrigued by the scene in the truck. We'll talk about it. It's
yes. All the torture stuff we need to talk about a lot.
The torture
stuff is really also on point in this movie.
It is, yeah.
But yeah, the straitjacket is really gruesome, and the way that they are like making the like, beyond horrified wife like sign paperwork for the release of
pay for like, it's like a receipt, like it's one of the parts of the way like the law works in this movie is people, which is like not dissimilar to how it works actually, is that people have to pay for their own interrogations and their own arrest and
totally
right
and also just like even the like inhumanity of like having to like sign paperwork to like for something that you like is the opposite of what you want, but sort of being like intimidated into signing paperwork. That is a huge influence on safe sex. That element of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so go on. The plot. We haven't even gotten to Sam Lowry yet.
I know.
My boy.
So Jill, surly woman from the bath, tells the man that they've made a mistake. And to which the officer says, "Mistake? We don't make mistakes." So yeah. Now we get to the Ministry of Information, and we meet Mr. Kurtzman. There's all these nerds in the Ministry of Information gathering around these mini televisions. They're like watching old Hollywood movies. This is another theme in the movie.
Yeah. They're watching Casablanca, I think.
Yeah, they're watching Casablanca. So
that shot. Did you read about this? That like really long shot going through the like, again, the like Kafkaesque Ministry of Information is actually like they're like going around like in a circle, but it looks like they're going like in one straight line, but they're actually like travel. It's a very innovative and interesting shot.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I did not read about that, so thank you. So there's this like comedy moment where Mr. Kurtzman is like, he goes into his office and like all the nerds watch their little TVs, and then like he comes out and they start working again and blah blah blah.
Yeah, great stuff.
Good stuff. So
I think that stuff is really funny.
No, that was funny. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think Mr. Kurtzman is a really great character.
That's the Ian Holm character.
Yeah, he's really good. So Kurtzman calls Sam Lowry. He calls for him. He's not there. This is when we get to Sam's dream.
Yes.
Yeah, these beautiful like clouds, and Sam is this crazy like silver glam alien.
He looks great.
Yeah, he looks great with the like angel alien whatever with these like giant wings and like this glam makeup. And there's this beautiful lady calling to him.
Yes.
And then his alarm goes off.
Oh yeah, so he's still at home. So then we get little fact about me. One of my very first writing gigs was writing a piece about what I like observed in movies as this not trope, but like as this little like element that you see in a lot of movies of what I called the Rube Goldberg breakfast machine.
That is literally my exact note.
Yeah. So like, there's some of the movies I wrote about are like Back to the Future and Wallace and Gromit and Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Like the idea of this like overwrought, overly elaborate.
That isn't particularly
mechanism
effective either.
Yeah, exactly. That like makes your breakfast. And yeah, Sam's right from the go, like, shows again the like dysfunction of like all of these like appliances and systems that are supposed to make his life easier, but they like pour coffee on his toast and et cetera, et cetera.
Right. So Sam gets to work at the Ministry of Information, the symbol of which is, again, a crazy winged statue, much like the dream.
Yes.
And carved into the base is "The truth shall make you free." And we see a group of school children and nuns visiting the Ministry of Information, which is like super sinister, but is decorated for Christmas. So yay. Kind of reminded me a little bit of Grand Central Station.
Totally.
While making small talk with a colleague, who turns out to be Jack, Sam sees on one of the televisions the woman from his dream, who's also Jill, the Buttles neighbor. Jack tries to tell Sam that records is a dead-end department, and Sam like doesn't really care. So we see that
Sam is like very actually like committed to like, he just wants to like keep his head down, and he's clearly like more like competent and intelligent than like anybody else, and even his boss is like, can you like come in here and like help me with this? And Sam like knows how to do everything, but is not ambitious at all. And like that's another element that that inspired me for Safe Sex, was the idea of somebody who is like just trying to like keep their head down as a paper pusher within the system so that they can like maintain their private like inner fantasy life. And the sort of like, what are the pros and cons and complications of like that strategy within an oppressive society.
That is one way to disassociate under capitalism. Like, just keep your head down. And Sam, that's very much a theme for him also, with his apartment decorated in like old movie posters. Like he lives in a fantasy life. It relates to the production design, obviously, because this production design very much this movie is actually credited with beginning steampunk, actually. Like
I know.
Yes.
So like, sorry.
Damn you, Tina.
I mean, listen, I had nothing. I was, like I said, I was 2. So 3, maybe. When it was being made, I was a baby.
It's so funny too, because when I read that it inspired steampunk, I was like, I know that Tina is also gonna groan when she reads this. It's like,
listen, whatever people like, but steampunk's a little played out.
It feels racist to me, but that's just that's just my read on it. And like in this movie, I would say it's less about nostalgia for the past and more about like connecting the movie to noir themes. Film noir like famously explores social ills and cynicism, which is another reason I wanted to do this movie, because on the Patreon I'm doing film noir this month.
Nice.
So the production design of this film and the music of this film is all very inspired by noir.
Totally.
And Fritz Lang as well, which of course brings it into that like whole future dystopia space. What else? What do I want to say here? Okay. So we then see the neighbor, Jill, from earlier, presenting a form for wrongful arrest. So she's trying to get Buttle released. And she's in this like bureaucratic nightmare where they keep telling her to go to different departments.
Again, like, as you rightfully pointed out, it's like a little on the nose and like a little surface level, but at the same time, like, I like relate really hardcore to like that nightmare.
Oh, totally. That is very accurate.
The idea of like, if she's like in this cycle where when she goes to one place, they tell her that she needs a stamp from the other place that told her to come to that place. And it's like, that shit's all real. And maybe part of the reason that it feels so on the nose is that like all you have to do is just like show it as it really is, and like in order to expose
there's
how
like really no need to exaggerate.
like demoralizing it is. Yeah.
Later, Sam is looking into the case, the Buttle case, and he sees that there was a mistake with Buttle, but he states that it wasn't their department's mistake. It was information retrieval's fault. So it's not really, they're relieved that it was not their mistake. So it's not really about Buttle, the human being. It's about them making a mistake in their department.
Yeah.
So Kurtzman says he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know what he'd do if Sam was ever promoted. Kurtzman tells Sam that he's been given a promotion because of his mother pulling strings. And this upsets Sam. And he goes to his mother to tell her to stop helping him. And now we meet Sam's mother. Who is
this is probably the most iconic image from the movie. Like if you've seen one image from this movie, it is probably this one.
Tell us what's happening.
Well, this actress, she's she's Judith Light's mom and Who's the Boss, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which just, I mean, if you're from a certain generation, you'll just be like, "What?" So she is, she's getting like a plastic surgery like consultation, and her plastic surgeon is Jim Broadbent, another like British character actor that I love, and she's getting, he is like stretching the skin of her face, and she's like very blasé about it, and so it's, I don't know, it's both like this very inventive scene portraying like vanity and the sort of like frivolity of wealth, and then at the same time I feel like when I first saw it, like that was sort of my read of just like, oh my god, these like silly ladies like da 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 da, and like that's like an example of something that now I'm really grateful to have a much more sophisticated like understanding of like plastic surgery, and that like it's actually like quite femphobic
it's so misogynist
to like have this critique where it's just like, okay, all I'll do is just like show especially older women like getting plastic surgery like, in order to appear younger.
Like this old bat
so it's very grotesque. So I have like mixed feelings about that part where it still is like the makeup is very impressive. And
it gave her blisters, apparently.
That's right. The actress. But at the same time, it's like, okay, let's, I hope that like this is not like a continued thing that we see in dystopia. Like, how can we show that like society is really bad? I know we'll like show these old ladies getting this like really grotesque plastic surgery.
Yes, that is something that happens in a lot of dystopia, like the Hunger
How did you feel about it?
I felt like it was super misogynist. I was like, here we go, like ladies doing vain things to represent like how far gone society is without any acknowledgement of like how that functions in different classes of women. I don't really feel like women are people in this movie. I feel like
totally.
I feel like Jill is just Sam. Like she is just supposed to be like his idealized self. Like she has like integrity,
well, I mean,
which is pretty cool.
That actually, you can't help yourself, because that's actually an even more interesting.
That is cool.
Like,
yes,
characterization than the movie I think deserves. Which is like the idea that because that makes the gender stuff kind of interesting, that he would like imagine when he sees himself as like a free person, that he would imagine himself as a woman. And I think this might be the right time to bring this up. Like he imagines himself as a butch woman, right? And like there's also this like she drives a fucking truck.
Yes.
She has mad Furiosa vibes.
Yes.
She's got like this like super short, like it's not even like a Mia Farrow pixie cut. It is like a butch
it's
haircut.
just like a chopped haircut. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's like a little bit of a fucked up element with this, where like in his fantasy, she's very ethereal and feminine. And then when he meets her in real life, she's like butch and trash talking and like, she like kind of needs to like become his fantasy woman, like throughout the narrative of the story. But I like your read that she is him. And I actually wonder if that's part of the reason that she's a very rare like romantic lead who gets to be butch basically the whole movie until the very end.
Yeah, I mean, the way I feel about it, and this is also from reading this Ruthless World person, because she actually posited this, but I was kind of thinking it already because of the ending, which I'll tell you about when we get there, why I thought that. But she kind of posits, because of like we're both kind of introduced to them where Jill is like washing off the stink of her job and she's in a charcoal gray bath, and Sam is always wearing charcoal gray suits. There's like there's like some mirroring stuff going on there with them.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I think that's
homo.
That's incredibly homo. Yeah. I think, in his fantasy, right, that he's obviously like supposed to be the winged Ministry of Information figure come to life, saving, but not actually, but like it's revealed to be not helpful, right? Like that's the whole thing of his dream. Like he realizes he's like not doing good in his dream, like with the work that he's doing. And he also envisions this like fantasy woman, but then in real life she's like this butch chick. And I feel like it complicates this idea of like a sexual fantasy and a fantasy of like the best person you could be, like, or like kind of wanting to like amalgamate your sexual partner's best traits into you. Like it kind of it does some interesting stuff with that.
This is so on brand that you have managed to like find a queer interpretation
totally of course
of this movie that I totally this is like the first time that I've contemplated that. So good job.
Yay. I had to find something in here to make homo. So back to this scene. So yeah, I felt it was misogynist. I felt it was very, I feel like I could write a whole paper about like the way that femme is portrayed in dystopian literature and film.
You should.
Yeah, I feel like that. I mean, look at the Hunger Games. Like it's always femininity, right? That's like the frivolity. And
totally.
Jill is not feminine. So she's like the opposite of this. So she's like good. There's also an equation in dystopian films and in this film of like working class and wholesomeness and radicalness with like masculinity. And
totally.
With like the bourgeoisie and anything that's evil or gets associated with femininity.
Absolutely.
So so she also says to Jim Broadbent, "Would you like to be Surgeon General? I simply know everybody," which I thought was really funny. And totally. Sam is taken to lunch by his mother, who's now in this like leopard skirt suit with this giant shoe on her head and like flaming red hair.
I mean, that's the other thing that like almost redeems the misogyny is that like the like femme like costuming is fantastic.
Exactly. Yes.
Even if they intended it to be like a critique of vanity, it's like woodwear.
It's just good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they also meet up with his mother's friend, who's also in a crazy outfit, and her daughter, who's in headgear. He's like a shy girl in headgear. And he can't get a word in. And while at lunch, a bomb goes off, but people are like carrying on like nothing has happened. Totally. The musicians continue to play and everybody continues to have lunch while firefighters come and douse the fire. The musicians are playing Havana Aguila for some reason. Sam, the women are like, oh, Sam, can't you do something about these terrorist attacks? And he's like, it's not my department. Like, nobody cares. And Sam leaves the table saying he doesn't want a promotion. He wants nothing, not even dreams. So this is like what you were saying, right? Like, he just wants to fucking put his head down and like live his life. Totally. And we are thrust into one of his flying dreams. But this time in the dream, the land explodes and the woman in the dream, Jill, is overwhelmed by the eruption. So I'm just saying. Sam awakens to his apartment smoking from his busted air conditioning. He calls Central Services for help.
Can I just say this is a very like that dream sequence and also like all of the stuff in his apartment, like gotta give props to this movie for the practical effects. Like the practical effects are incredible.
He calls Central Services for help, but he only gets a recording. So in this universe, people have to call the government to fix their air conditioners. Which is crazy. Lowry, Sam, I keep calling him Lowry because they call him Lowry for like the first half of the movie and then they start calling him Sam. Sam falls asleep in his refrigerator because it's so hot and wakes up to
can relate.
To a masked man, Robert De Niro, pointing a gun at him.
Yes.
And he says he's only there to help fix his air conditioner, that he intercepted Sam's call to Central Services. And he tells Sam his name is Harry Tuttle, and he isn't officially working with Central Services. And he pulls out a bunch of tools and starts working on the AC. He tells Sam that he doesn't want to work officially for Central Services because there's too much bureaucracy. So he's this like renegade engineer.
I do love the idea of like like De Niro's character is kind of like the ultimate like liberated person, and he's like self-actualized as a liberated person and has like fused his like adventurous flying through the air like personality with his occupation. And so and like the the element where like the ultimate like liberated rebel is like somebody who like a handyman who like efficiently takes care of your utilities is like pretty amazing. I cannot think of it, and like pretty original and unique. Like I can't think of another movie that constructs that quite in that way.
And I'm also thinking about how the revolutionaries are American and the kind of like patsy ministry people are British. And how De Niro is kind of like this like staggering hero.
Yeah, there is a little bit of that, like both like there's definitely film noir elements, but then in that sense, there's a little bit of like Western to it, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So Tuttle finds the issue with the AC, he starts to fix it, and all of a sudden a doorbell rings and Tuttle flips out, he hides behind the fridge, pointing a gun at the door as Lowry answers. And at the door is Central Services. A pair of goonish, brutish men wanting to come in and fix the AC, but when Lowry asks for the proper paperwork, one of the men starts shaking in fear, and Sam is able to get them to leave before Tuttle shoots them. Sam then pieces together that Harry is the heating engineer Tuttle that they're actually looking for, that he's the reason the Buttle mistake happened. So Sam tells Tuttle that he knows this. Tuttle starts humming the Brazil song from the beginning when Sam asks what they want him for. And Harry says, listen, kid, we're all in this together. And then he leaves heroically on this like bungee, right?
On like a zip line.
Yeah, the zip line.
Like a superhero.
Yeah, Sam's the structure of his apartment building is wild. I don't quite know how to
it's sort of like Art Deco kind of, right?
Yes. Yeah. And
it's also definitely like a combination of, like we were saying, practical effects. There's like definitely like models, which, you know, as a like practical effects like kid of the 80s, I am definitely like, yay, models. Like,
Yeah.
but then also that's that thing where there's like I don't know what you call it, like in theater it's like a scrim, or like just sort of like something that's like meant to be the background, but it's like two-dimensional, but then there's like a trick of the eye where there's like also a set that like continues into the two-dimensional background.
Right.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about. I don't know what it's called though.
Yeah.
But it's cool.
It looks cool.
Yeah.
I think it's cool.
So back at the Ministry of Information, Sam figures out that Buttle is dead while investigating his interrogation refund check. Yeah. The anxiety with Kurtzman and Sam is not that Buttle is dead, but that they don't know what to do with this check. Because he's been issued a refund for his own interrogation, but he's dead. So and
then the interrogation is what killed him also. So
exactly.
Again, irony.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Kurtzman, they don't know what to do with this check, and they're kind of freaking out. And Sam takes action, and he says he's going to bring it to the Buttle widow. So he drives down this kind of like surrealistic retro futurist highway with the Brazil song playing. There's a terrorist attack.
Oh yeah, his like tiny car.
Yes, his tiny weird car. A terrorist attack is announced on the radio, and he changes the station. Like, it just kind of shows that like it doesn't really affect him. Like, he's not thinking about it as like a conscious citizen yet. He's just like he's still a sheep. He's just like, well, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
He's in this like vintagey futuristic car. He's like encountering, like as he gets up to the Buttle home, he's like encountering children, playing in like apocalyptic waste.
Totally.
Sam gets to the Buttle home, which is in a very poor neighborhood in a rundown building, which is in stark contrast to the building he lives in. The apartment is totally trashed. The Christmas tree is turned over. Mrs. Buttle is despondent, sitting in a chair.
Yeah.
And Sam tries to like talk. She's like, he's dead, isn't he? And Sam tries to like talk it away with all this like bureaucracy language nonsense.
He says like he's like trying to get her to sign the check. He's like, I'm trying to give you money here.
Right.
And he says, I'm a bit of a stickler for paperwork. Like, where would we be without protocol? Which is which is interesting because he's sort of positioned as somebody who doesn't like believe in the system, but then when he's like an enforcer of the system, he's kind of like parroting
on it. Yeah. Which is the thing is, I don't think Terry Gilliam has an analysis of like gender or race.
Agreed.
In this work. But that is something that white people in positions of power who think that they mean well is something that they do.
Absolutely.
Right. Where it's like, oh, I'm one of the good ones. But as soon as
absolutely.
I have to, I'm going to rely on this system that hurts
because
you.
I can.
Yeah, exactly. So Mrs. Buttle like flips out, demanding to know where his body is because she's like being a fucking human being. And
she's like the manifestation of trauma.
Yes. Her young son attacks Sam. And once the altercation ends, there's this broken mirror, and Sam sees Jill's reflection from upstairs in the mirror, asking Mrs. Buttle if she's ready or if she's all right.
They are like fragmented aspects of the person.
Exactly.
Love it.
So he realizes, right, it's the woman from his dream. And also when he sees her in the mirror, you can, like in her voice changes, right? Like in the mirror, she's got this like long like hair from the fantasy. And she's like, are you all right? And then her voice changes and like we see her and she's like, Mrs. Buttle, are you all right? Like it's very.
She's like, what the fuck? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like also this, his fantasy version of her is very different. So
totally.
Jill runs off before Sam can talk to her. Sam runs outside to see that his car has been set on fire. And Jill drives off in her big truck, and Sam like chases her, yelling, "I had nothing to do with it." Totally like complicit,
like you were saying before. Right. Yeah. Love me.
Yeah.
I'm one of the good guys. Yeah. Awards for good boys. Yeah.
And like when he was running upstairs to find Jill, he ran into this guy, like slammed face first into him, and like we see that guy again. Drive off on this motorcycle.
Oh, interesting.
It's the guy who's like
that guy?
I think it has something to do with giving Jill packages. Like
right.
Yeah.
Right. Because then later they go, there's like a MacGuffin package for a while, and
So he drives away sketchily on his motorcycle. Sam tries to drive off, but his car is all trashed, and he finds out the name of the neighbor. He finds Jill's name from this little girl in the street, and he realizes that the little girl is Buttle's daughter, and he looks sad about it for like a second, and then moves on with his life.
Totally.
So back at work, Sam can't get any information on Jill because her file is classified. And there's this great noir music also I noted during that scene. Kurtzman asks Sam if like the Buttles check thing is resolved. The only way that Sam can get information on Jill is to take that promotion that his mother got for him. But Kurtzman has signed his form stating that he doesn't want the promotion, thinking he was doing Sam a favor.
Right.
So Sam is pissed, obviously. He's like on this kind of like moody train ride. He obsessing over
that's
Jill.
A great set piece.
That is a great set. That's like, it's like the train inside his building. It's so weird.
It's really weird.
Sam has a vision of himself again as the angel, the silver angel, and he flies through these futuristic high-rise structures. And he sees Jill floating in a cage, being dragged by a grotesque troupe of like hunched skeletons with baby faces on the ground below. So Sam's visions are getting darker.
Yeah.
Sam comes home to find that Central Services have ripped his apartment apart and discovered that someone has fixed his air conditioning for him.
Right, which is not allowed.
Not allowed. So they leave him with his apartment fucked up. In Sam's dream world, this is when we start to get some problematic elements.
Yes. Again, totally, I confess, not something that I picked up on when I was a teenager, that upon rewatch, this was the really major thing. Because like the gender stuff, we've talked about it already, and kind of like as a queer woman, I feel like I'm in a position to be like, okay, like I can decide when to take things with a grain of salt, or I can decide like when to, as you clearly like instinctively, you were like, in order to cope, I will create a queer reading of this. I can't allow this to just be a like manic pixie dream girl, like
Seriously.
Damsel in distress. So she's an aspect of him. But then like, then so he is like going up against it. So in his dream, there's like a manifestation of what can only be because like the antagonist of the movie is society, right? Or like the system, which like, yes, you're right. There's some American, there's people with American accents and there's people with British accents. Everyone's white in this movie. And it's like, maybe it's London, but nobody says like what country it is. And then like the monster that he has to face in order to rescue his damsel in distress, that like represents the like definitely white, maybe British, like Western government, is like a samurai.
Yeah, it's like this big metal samurai.
And it is just like so Orientalist and so like, oh well, we'll have this monster be represented by this like exotic other, and it kind of reminded me of like Big Trouble in Little China, where it's just like, oh yeah, we'll just have this sort of like anyway, so lazy, racist.
It doesn't make any sense. I was like,
it also doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I was like trying to find, because I was like, is this like just does this symbolize anything? And I was like reading about samurai, and I was like, this doesn't really make any sense. Like,
no, samurai are like honor. Like, actually, the De Niro character is sort of more like a samurai figure, not to be like a total fucking nerd, but like,
no,
like
for real,
samurai
though.
are like or like honorable, like assassins for hire, essentially, right?
That's
so
what I was thinking. I was like, isn't a samurai like a noble figure? This doesn't feel like.
And it has a very like sort of like racist face. Like I know also all of the little like puppet baby like baby mask like hunched over creatures. Like I didn't see those babies as necessarily like having like Asian, like racist Asian features, but like.
But if you made the case for it, I wouldn't argue it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Especially like when they're like next to this like sort of samurai monster. So anyway, that just sucks.
It does.
Like, so my note is take that out.
It sucks. That's really the only thing to say about it. And the samurai, he like has these other people who are enslaved, like Mrs. Buttle. And he kills the samurai. This is the part where he kills the samurai and unmasks it and sees that it's him, right?
Right. So he's everyone in his dream, which I guess like makes sense in a like Jungian fashion.
For sure. And then I was also like, oh my God, is the samurai thing just even more stupid than I thought? And it's because his name is Sam.
I actually just realized that when I said the word samurai. Yeah. Oh God. So that might be true.
I mean, that is something a man would write. All right.
So fuck that part of the movie.
Yeah, for real. Yeah. Okay. So he awakens to an awfully singing telegram.
I love that.
I love that lady. Yeah, being invited to his mother's party to celebrate her recent cosmetic surgery.
I am so
which I think is iconic, having a party for your own surgery.
Yeah, true. It's like almost like unintentionally, like it's like meant to be grotesque again, but it's like, like hilarious, like I would, cool. Yeah. I would love that. I will not to focus in. I know we're like barely even halfway through the movie, but not to focus in. But that telegram girl has like mad sex work vibes to me. Like anytime you have someone like in a film or like portrayed in any media where you like see them like putting on the real show and then like you immediately see their like face fall and see them like sort of standing around like bored like waiting for their tip or like changing their accent or whatever. I'm just like, this is great. I'm a sucker for that.
Yeah, she's really good, and she's also giving me strong Columbia from Rocky Horror vibes.
100%.
So when he arrives at this party, he's like assaulted at the door once again because no one knows who he is. And his mother rescues him, looking radiant and younger than ever.
Yes.
She's wearing a fabulous gown. Love her. Party is totally surreal. Jim Broadbent, the plastic surgeon, is gloating. Sam keeps having these like visions of enslaved people from his dream.
Yeah.
Both Sam's mother and her friend from lunch try to chide Sam into flirting with the headgear daughter, Shirley. And it's really funny because Shirley goes, "It's all right. I don't like you either."
I really like that part because, the idea of like, hey, I've got this like beautiful like dream babe, so I'm like not gonna be into you. You have braces, and then like she gets this little moment of triumph, like which is like
mutual,
like points for the movie where she's like, she at least has a little bit of like agency where she's like, yeah, this thing that our mothers are doing of trying to like shove us together, like it's not like a total moment of humiliation for her, which I appreciate because usually that trope, it ends up with like that girl just being like humiliated for like not being hot enough to like be worthy of being the his dream girl. So I like that she says, I don't like you very much either. Right. And the mom's friend, I forget the actress's name, but her plastic surgery is like
bad,
sort of. It's sort of like the dark shadow of of his mom, who does become like more and more radiant and glamorous, and then like you kind of see you literally see the stitches, right? You like see her plastic surgery is like not going so well, and yeah, that's definitely like misogynistic and ageist, where she's like, oh, I'm sure I'm going to be very beautiful very soon. Like,
Yeah.
and yeah. So that, and her fate, we will get to eventually, but
Right. So
yeah. So he's at this party, and he wants to accept the promotion
yes.
in order to get information on his dream girl Jill, which, can we just point out, is actually stalking.
Yes.
He's
At this
stalking her.
point, fully stalking her. Yeah, he
Yeah.
runs into Jack again. There's like a funny part where he thinks that Jack is talking about his wife's tit job, but he's actually talking about her ears.
That's funny.
Sam finds Mr. Helpman, an older man in a wheelchair from the beginning of the film. And he says, Sam, I need your help. And then we cut, and it's Sam helping him take a piss.
Yeah.
And Sam convinces Mr. Helpman to give him the promotion back in order to get access to Jill's classified files. So back in Dream World, Sam battles the Metal Samurai again. I'm bored.
Yawn.
Sam goes to report to his new position, which seems much more ominous than his previous one. He wanders through these like empty concrete corridors. I really like this scene where he keeps seeing
Scene is
frantic
great.
men go by.
But really, really, really well done.
Yeah, and then they finally like sweep him up, and his new boss starts like fast talking and multitasking while introducing to him to his new department. He gets
This is the best slapstick scene in the movie, where and it's just like looks simple but is really hard to do this well, where like his first of all, he's like, you know, he's gotten this promotion and he has his like own office, but it's like super tiny and cramped and windowless.
Mm-hmm.
And then even when he tries to put his stuff down on his desk, it turns out he's sharing a desk with the guy in his own private office next door. And so there's just like all this physical comedy of him like trying to like yank his desk back. It like has to be seen to be appreciated. But I do really love that part.
Yeah, so there's that moment, and then he goes next door and meets this nervous dude who he's battling over the desk with. And the guy also has a poster in his office that says, "Don't suspect a friend, report him," which I thought was really
Oh,
funny.
yeah. There's also, I have written down here in my notes that another one of the propaganda posters, which says, "Suspicion breeds confidence."
Yes, it's hilarious. Yeah. Sam asks to borrow this guy's computer, and the man obviously doesn't want him to. And he's like, I'll do it for you. And so Sam needs info on Jill. The dude is really creepy about it. He's like, "Oh, girl, huh?"
Yeah.
And while waiting for this creep to give him info about Jill, Sam has another vision of Jill floating in a cage above the city. When he tries to rescue her, the bricks of the street become sentient and try to pull him back. And we see that the bricks have the face of Kurtzman. So he feels like he abandoned him. Sam gets info on Jill that says he needs to go to room 5001 to find out more. So 5001 is a strange place. This is obviously like where they do the interrogations and shit.
Yes.
There's a woman receptionist, and she's like transcribing what sounds like a recorded murder, but is clearly like an interrogation. And she's
that's
just, like,
another of my
unfazed. Yeah.
Another of my favorite scenes, where she's just like typing away, and you like see a close up of her transcription of the.
No, stop! Yeah.
Yeah, and it like I love that, and I really like, again, the torture themes of this movie are listen, I'm a fan of good torture. Give me this over like so-called torture porn any day.
Oh,
it's
hell
like,
yeah. I really would like kind of like the way Jack is so kind of like cool and sadist about it is pretty hot. I won't lie.
Dude, totally. Again, Michael Palin is definitely still my favorite part of this movie.
He's really great, and now is his time to shine. So,
yes.
So Sam is given permission to see Officer 412 stroke L. And he enters the room and he sees that it's Jack, and he's got this bloody white smock on, and he's like massaging his own face with this kind of device. Like he's just tortured someone so that the person bled all over him. Yeah. And he's like, oh, I'm so stressed. Yes. He's like, like just massaging his face, like trying to wind down in his office. Totally. Jack gives Sam, like it's nothing, like a Christmas present. And this is another theme of the movie, right? Is like capitalism and Christmas and blah, 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 blah. I just don't really care. Whatever. So one of Jack's small daughters is in his office, one of his triplets. This is like funny because he's like doesn't even know which one it is. And that is very it's funny. One of them. It also like apparently he wanted, this was Michael Palin's idea to have his own daughter. Yeah. Because he thought it would make him more sinister to have like a child. Love it. With him during this scene.
I usually don't support the use of children as emotional devices in films, or really their presence at all. But
it's very effective here, though.
But it's very effective.
Yeah. So Sam asks Jack for info on Jill. Jack and Jill. And Sam learns that Jack is the man who killed Buttle in interrogations. Yeah. He's like, well, I didn't know he had a heart condition. It's like,
and then he says again with the critique of bureaucracy, he says he really like takes umbrage at the suggestion that like he made a mistake, but he's like, they made a mistake, then they sent me the wrong man. I did my job. As a member of information retrieval, I attempted to retrieve the information. I did the right job, and it's not my fault that it was the wrong man.
Right. So, Sam, he learns that it's him who killed Buttle. He also learns that he's going to interrogate Jill, so meaning torture her, because she witnessed Buttle's arrest. So Sam convinces Jack to let him be the one to get information from Jill, and Jack agrees because he's like always trying to get Sam to, level up. So that's how this ties in now. So Jack gives Sam a nicer suit. On his way to his office, Sam sees policemen cruelly allow a chained suspect to try and escape, like knowing that it would be futile for the person to escape. That person is in your hot straitjacket. Yes, yeah. And in the elevator, Sam sees Jill at the entrance to the Ministry of Information arguing at the front desk again, and he struggles to get out of the elevator, but he's like thwarted at every turn. And he is almost shot, and Jill is almost seized by the police, but Sam shows his badge, and he leads a confused Jill away, and he takes her outside and gets into her truck. She's very masculine in a way that he's just not.
Totally.
He gets in the truck. She wants him to get out. This is really funny because Sam, he's like, in my dreams, I dream about you and I love you. And she's like, oh yeah, you're really cute. Yeah, you're really hot. Very, using her feminine wiles. Maybe the only time in the movie that we really see her do something like that. And Jill,
totally.
She kicks him out of the truck and he refuses to let go. So he's just hanging onto the back, and she takes him with her. And there's this weird dystopian work site that's a 50s kind of satire of suburban education films or ads or whatever, because everybody's in hazmat suits and they're building these terrible little module homes, which is scary because everybody in fucking SF lives in these fucking things. So yeah, I was like, wow, he predicted it. And Sam sees this man handing off a package to Jill, and he begins to believe that she is going to commit a terrorist bombing.
Right.
In the truck, he reveals it's only his first day on the job. After Jill questions him, she's like, how many terrorists have you actually met? Because she can tell that he doesn't know anybody outside this world.
Yeah.
And Sam, he urges her to drive through a roadblock. There's a car chase. It ends in flames. Jill and Sam escape. They go to a mall, the ultimate symbol of society and capitalism.
Yeah. Overconsumption.
Right.
Yeah.
And he implores
materialism, especially during Christmas.
Especially for Christmas. I mean, somebody is holding a sign that says "Consumers for Christ." And
see, this is why I'll allow this to be. This is like the only, besides Die Hard, this is the only Christmas movie I acknowledge, because
I mean it's very critical of Christmas. Yeah. Sam encounters his mother's friend again, who is like now even more grotesque and covered in more bandages. So every time we see her, she's like more and more grotesque.
Yeah.
Suddenly, a bomb goes off, and Sam immediately searches for Jill among the grisly wreckage, and he accuses her of bombing the store. Jill throws the package at him indignantly, like, it's not a bomb, it's a bribe for information officials for when she gets interrogated, basically.
Yeah.
Jill's first instinct is to help an injured old woman. Which very much puts her in contrast. Like, if we see how inhuman these bureaucrats are to people, it's like a direct contrast with her, because she's always asking people if they're okay. Like the old woman, Mrs. Buttle.
Totally.
Etc. So Tina and I took a little break in this episode because there was a lot going on here. We're catching up, and Sam, when we left off last time, Sam and Jill were in the mall. Bomb had gone off.
Extreme announcer voice.
Right.
Last time
on Brazil. Jill tried to help an injured woman, which she's always trying to help people. And
totally.
It's part of her character. And
Butch is always trying to help people.
Yes. Oh.
Butch is to the rescue.
Yeah.
Even when they are sort of manic pixie dream girls.
Yes. And even when they are maybe like supposed to be Sam.
Oh yes. When they're like a hetero social projection. I'm reaching. Anyway, go on.
It's okay. And so the ministry comes and seizes Jill, and Sam has another vision of himself fighting the problematic metal samurai.
We all have our problematic samurais to face.
and he vanquishes the samurai, and then he wakes up in what I think is the most horny scene, in that truck carrying all the prisoners.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Please tell us how horny the straight jacket truck makes
I don't know. I just really did it for me. Like, Sam,
can you describe it for the people who haven't seen the movie?
Yeah. So there's this. He's in this police truck, and Sam is like free. I'm assuming because he's part of the ministry, and the cops are, kind of just like hanging out in the truck, mocking everybody, all the prisoners. Yeah. But this truck is it looks like almost like a meat freezer, where there's like bags hanging on hooks from the ceiling of the truck. But in these bags are people who are like straitjacketed and chained and hanging from the ceiling of this truck. And I just thought it was pretty hot.
And what about this is horny to you? Is this something you would like to do to your friends? Is this your idea of a birthday party?
This is my idea. Like, I would really like to be driving in this truck, like, free, while all of these people are hanging from the ceiling of this truck. And I just kind of, push their little bags around. God. This is like
amazing.
Me trying to find horny things in this movie.
Yeah. I mean, the as we talked about last time, this movie is maybe the least horny in the like text of like maybe any, not to be self-aggrandizing, but maybe of any movie you've done on this show.
Yeah.
But because there's so much torture and institutional horror, there's plenty to jerk off to. We can find it.
Yeah, like this
scene. A little bit,
Yeah.
You just have to be, it's the pervert challenge.
It's the pervert challenge. I mean, that's kind of, I always challenge myself to find the perv in every movie. And this was the moment.
Not,
for
I
me.
feel like it's maybe not that much of a challenge for you.
No, it's definitely not that much of a challenge for me.
You've been in training. Sorry. Okay. So Sam, if I remember correctly, is like, he thinks that Jill must be in one of the bags.
Yes.
So there's also this tension of like, there's all these anonymous people, and sorry if you can hear, it's garbage day. Every day is garbage day in my neighborhood. Okay, so there's this like really interesting tension, I think, of like Sam is like trying to identify the people in the bags to try to find Jill. And like, by the way, he's like much less concerned with being confronted with these like egregious crimes of the state than he is with like finding the object of his sexual obsession. He'll like find what it's like one guy, and he's like, oh no, well, you're like not that girl, so I'll just like leave you here to like be tortured and die.
Right. Like, bye.
Yeah.
Yes, which is very Sam. So,
very Sam.
Right. Very, very much his character. The cops are kind of annoyed with him and they knock him out. And back at the ministry, Sam's boss kind of goes in on him. Mm-hmm. Sam goes to Jack to ask for information on Jill, who thinks that Tuttle and Jill are in league. And he says to Sam, he's like, we've always gotten along, but like until this all blows over, just stay away from me.
Yeah.
Sam, agitated, has a freak out in his office, causing him to jam those mail pipes, whatever they're called, those mail tubes. And,
the pneumatic tubes.
Right. And there's like a weird moment where the mail like showers down on the department.
Mm-hmm.
Back at his apartment, the AC guys are back, the evil AC men, and they've taken over the flat and essentially evicted him. And all of a sudden, outside his apartment, Sam sees Tuttle breaking into the main heating apparatus for the building, causing the AC guys' suits to fill with like a gross liquid.
It's shit. He literally says it's like the sewer pipes.
Okay, so I didn't catch that. So it's actually shit.
Yeah. Did you find this part erotic?
No.
Shit bondage suffocation? No?
I mean,
okay.
Like erotic generally, but not erotic to me. But like definitely horny.
Gotcha. Good distinction.
Yeah. And the
like put it in your like whatever the spank bank equivalent is of like things to threaten people with erotically, like if you're bad,
you're gonna go in the plastic suit filled with your own shit.
Exactly.
And they fill up these suits with shit and they drown in their own suits. And then they kind of like he kind of blows them up.
Amazing.
And suddenly this is like I feel like the end of this movie is when it starts to get super surreal. Suddenly Jill is there and Sam and Jill almost kiss, but Tuttle interrupts to say goodbye as he bungees away. And, Sam takes Jill to his mother's house and they begin
by the way.
Gorgeous house. I love her house.
Palatial.
Yes. They begin to make out. There's like swelling music, colored lights, but then Sam all of a sudden like blocks it, tells her to lock the doors and wait for him, and runs out of the house.
He's had an idea.
So he's going back to the ministry where the police officers, this is like kind of funny. The police officers are rehearsing carols in a choir.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sam uses, there's this ghost in the machine clue from earlier. From to find Helpman's office, because Helpman says something earlier about the ghost in the machine, and I forget exactly like what he does, how he uses that clue. I think it's like a code.
It's a
he uses
little
for the
vague.
elevator. Yeah, it's vague.
Yeah.
He gets to Helpman's office. Helpman is not there, but he does see a picture of his mother on Helpman's desk. I was wondering if you had any idea what that could mean.
I think that I just think it's like he's always been in love with her, and that is the only reason that he's looking out for Sam.
Okay, I get it. That makes sense. So I was thinking maybe Helpman was his father or something.
Oh, yeah, that could be it.
Yeah. So he is able to delete. So Helpman's not there. So he goes into Helpman's computer system, and he's able to delete Jill from the computer system, making her essentially dead in the world.
Right.
Which he thinks is going to fix everything. And back at his mother's house, Jill is all beautiful. She's got long blonde hair. She's in white. Sam tells
she
Jill,
appears more to be the woman from his fantasy. Like
Yes.
she has now, it's like slight Vertigo energy, right?
That's a good point. Yeah.
It's like she's like holed up in his mom's house, and so she just like starts going through all this glamorous stuff, and like happens to put on this blonde wig. And yeah, when he shows up, she's like no longer Furiosa. Now she's like this like icy Hitchcock blonde, like ethereal woman from his dreams. And like now maybe so like what's the psychoanalysis of this moment that like now that she has like become this like ethereal femme aspect of his dreams, now they can consummate their love.
Right.
I don't know.
Right. Now that she's more feminine, they can actually have sex. And
like maybe he's like learned the power of self-respect by like infiltrate by like starting to like subvert his job instead of just like going along with the institution. And so that makes that like Curious's like impotent nature. I don't know.
Okay, that also makes sense because he was like a little pathetic kind of unsexed underling. And
totally.
Now he's, kind of got some bravado.
Everybody knows the revolution like just increases your libido.
It's true. And Sam tells Jill he killed her in the system, and she says, "Care for a little necrophilia."
I know. That line's ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous.
Okay, so then there's this like sort of proverbial pan to the fireplace, right? Like you don't actually like, there's no explicit sex.
Yeah.
But it's like clear that they've had sex.
Yeah, they have sex in that canopy bed, and there's like all those shots of fabrics and like a shot of fabric closing like vaginally too. And we see Sam like flying with Jill in his arms in his dream. But in the middle of their sex, the Ministry bursts through and takes them prisoner, and we hear some shots. We're unclear if Jill was the victim of those shots. And Sam is now in a giant panopticon-like structure.
This is my favorite. This is my favorite like setting in the movie.
Yeah, and it's now in IKEA.
Sam in the panopticon.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, the panopticon is now in IKEA, but Sam is in this panopticon, which is very like it's the can you go into a little bit detail about what the panopticon is? Do either of us remember from school?
Well, isn't a panopticon is when you have a prisoner and you can see it's like a big space where you can see a prisoner or many prisoners like behind, like either behind a glass wall or like in this case, he's like at the end of like a catwalk. So he's like partially imprisoned by like empty space. But I forget what I know that is like what that word refers to, but I forget, is it a reference to something?
Yeah, so it's a type of institutional building designed by English philosopher and social theorist Jeremy Bentham in the 18th century. It's like the foundation of
School me.
Right. It's the foundation of, you can see like the original drawing. Like,
oh, cool.
It's the foundation of modern imprisonment. Basically,
I mean, not cool.
Right.
Prison's not cool, guys.
It's basically so I'm just reading from the Ethics Center. The panopticon is a disciplinary concept brought to life in the form of a central observation tower placed within a circle of prison cells. From the tower, a guard can see every cell and inmate, but the inmates can't see into the tower. Prisoners will never know whether or not they are being watched.
Yeah,
so
that's relevant to our modern times,
right? Yeah, so it's I mean, like
the idea of prison not only as or bondage or being like, you know, like hidden away from the world, but also being surveilled 24/7 and like being robbed of any semblance of privacy. The like extreme cruelty of that is relevant to this story and relevant to our times for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And in this panopticon, it's like slightly different because Sam is in the center of it.
Yeah.
And but it definitely looks like a traditional panopticon drawing, where you would have like a circular, like basically the prisoners are in cells in a circular formation so that like whoever is in the center can see them at all times.
Yeah, I mean, there's something really terrifying about, like, I don't think you ever see what is below the catwalk and then like the central space where Sam is in this torture chair device, but there's something really awful about being captured but surrounded by empty space, but that empty space doesn't represent freedom because it is enclosed, and also if you were to like jump off of it, you know, it seems like probably you would like jump to your death, or certainly that you would be like further trapped and not be able to escape. So especially for someone whose fantasy of freedom is centered around the imagery of flying, it's like a very cruel design. Yeah,
that's a really good point too. Yes, and it's very creepy, and this is basically where people get tortured. But
I love the like design of his torture chair. That's a very on-brand sentence for me. Like there's this sort of almost like helmet that goes down over his head that has these almost sort of like Geiger metal organic like bars to them. And then, you know, there's your like classic tray of nasty looking implements, and it's just it's totally the stuff of nightmares.
Yeah, it's to make it even more horrible, the person who's strapping Sam in says, if you hold out too long, it'll jeopardize your credit rating.
Oh yeah. that again, that is like that line is a very good example of the way that Brazil influenced my comic Safe Sex.
Right.
Like the idea of like institutional violence, the relationship between institutional violence and bureaucracy.
Yeah, and it's just that very dark comedy that, I mean, I that was like one of the moments in the movie where I like really laughed.
Totally.
Because I can see that happening. Like,
absolutely.
For real.
Absolutely.
Jack, in one of those baby masks, approaches Sam to begin torturing him. And Sam pleads as Jack gets kind of like weird and irate. And something I found kind of interesting about Jack is like he's mad at Sam for making him do this to him. And he says this is a professional relationship. And something that I think is like unsaid in Jack's character is like
Mhm.
how much it fucks you up to do things like this to people, and how
Totally.
he has to have this like veneer of like having it together and that this is like a professional thing, but he's
Yeah.
so obviously insane from this work. And you can see
Totally,
it,
and he
right.
it makes me think of the scene where he's like very almost like neurotically insistent that like nobody does anxiousness better than Michael Palin, and he's
Mhm.
like, well, you know, I didn't kill the wrong man. They brought me the wrong man, so I killed the right man, like according to the forms. And then he's like annoyed at Sam that he now has to like go through the psychological anguish of having to like torture and possibly kill his friend.
Right.
And he's just like disassociating and like displacing the blame. It's like, why did you have to get yourself into the situation? So now I have to like be fucked up by what I now have to do as my duty.
Right. And like instead the greater question is, why do you live in a government that tortures people?
Yeah, and are you why are you bending over backwards to explain why you are not complicit?
Right.
That you're just following orders.
Sam is about to be tortured by Jack when Harry Tuttle and his posse break through and kill Jack, shooting him in the head and freeing Sam. There's like an epic shootout.
So now
Go ahead.
So wait, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
So this is the crucial point of the movie that is relevant to the studio censorship.
Yes.
So do you want to describe the rest of the movie and then we'll go back retroactively?
That's kind
and
of what I
talk
was
about
thinking. Yeah.
How it changes it? Okay, cool. But like important for folks following along at home, this is the moment where like Jack is like ready to start torturing Sam, and then Tuttle and all of his like radical associates like break in. That there is like a crucial break in the movie and a crucial break in the like notorious like different edits of this movie. So keep that in mind. So
yes.
Proceed.
So Tuttle breaks in with his posse. They kill Jack, free Sam. There's a shootout. Sam and Harry kind of epically like blow up the ministry. Sam is chased through the city to a funeral. And we see that the funeral...
Great scene. Oh, this scene is great.
This is so good. We see that the funeral is for his mother, who is alive now, but like looks like Jill. And it's...
Oh, that's right. That's right.
She has Jill's face, but the funeral is for her. So it's like a funeral for her old body or something.
That's right.
It's very surreal. You kind of know at this point that something's going on. That's not like it's not
the pace of the movie they've done. I think that this is one of the things that is genius about the movie. Terry Gilliam is a lot of things, and we could like critique a lot of things about him, but his like mastery, I think, is in his control of like absurdity and surrealism.
Right.
And like as you pointed out, like before this moment, the absurdity and surrealism has been escalating, but it's like kind of still plausible. But then all of a sudden things are going at like a much more rapid pace. And you kind of feel all of a sudden like all of these like genre conventions are like accelerating, where you're like, this is way more of an action adventure than it's been before. And also there's a little bit of dream logic where you like are in one place and then you go through a door and you're in another place, but you just kind of like keep going. And then everything is very like emotional and relevant to your life. But then some things from your life are like fusing together in like horrific ways.
Right. Yes, very much.
And Freudian ways, like your mom and your dream girl being fused.
Right. It starts to escalate, and by the point that we get to the funeral, we feel like, okay, something else is going on here. And the SWAT team breaks into the funeral, hunting down Sam, who accidentally like overturns the pink casket of rotting remains, and it's so gross.
It's incredible.
He falls through the casket, I think, into another part of the city. So we're like, okay, something very surreal is going on here. There's like a surreal landscape of high rises, like from his vision. And again, we see those horrible visions of those hunched baby skeleton people and the enslaved people coming for him. He goes through a door and is suddenly in a modular home on the back of Jill's truck. So the two ride into the sunset as the Brazil song plays. Jill is cradling Sam in her arms in a way that is very masculine. You know, this is also evidence of how Jill kind of represents Sam's own idealized self and his deeply repressed conscience. Finally, he snaps back to reality after this fantasy he's had, and we see that Jack.
Oh yeah, but the last thing that you see is like, really, it like gets to this like height of absurdism where they've like escaped, and then you see this like wide shot of this like country home where they've like, it seems like they've escaped from the city and now they're just like living happily ever after in this like gorgeous country home.
Yes.
And then there's this like rude awakening.
And we're back in the Panopticon. So he's snapped back to reality, and we actually see that Jack and Mr. Helpman have been torturing him so much that he's lost his mind. So, and that is where his fantasy was coming from. And, you know, they kind of are just like, okay, well, that one's gone. You know, like they're kind of, you know, Mr. Helpman and Jack are just kind of like, oh, well, like he's totally crazy now. His mind is like totally broken. But on the upside, it's the one place into which the ministry cannot intrude. That's why Mr. Helpman says at the end, I think he got away from us. Sam's life may be destroyed, but at least he is beyond the ministry's reach. By going insane, Sam escapes his hopeless world in the only way possible, through madness. So, and that is the end of Brazil, as I've seen it. So, Tina, what are some of the differences in the other versions?
So here's the deal. Okay. So like there's a great tradition in fiction of the sort of deeply the like deep situational irony of following the catharsis of a character, of the protagonist escaping from the situation only to discover that the escape that you've been witnessing and enjoying was actually their like last fantasy, or their like you know, like represents like the disassociative like madness that is occurring, right? So the ultimate version of this is the occurrence at Owl Street Bridge, or is that what it's called? Occurrence at Owl Street Bridge? Owl Creek. Oh my God.
Owl Creek, yes.
And the ultimate example of this is an occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, right? So which is a famous, I think, short story. And then I think there's a Twilight Zone episode of it.
Let me see.
But we're basically like the entire story is like someone escaping from being hung, and then in the last second you realize that it is like their like last fantasy, like before death, right? So that is what is actually happening in the movie Brazil, is the last like maybe like 10-minute sequence of Sam escaping is like him going mad from torture, right? And which is totally fitting for the movie, because the whole movie is about escaping your oppressive circumstances through a rich fantasy life. So it completely makes sense for his character that this is what he would do. And it is also very fitting for the movie that it's ultimately like not offering you a sort of Star Wars fantasy of like the rebellion, like conquering the empire, and like, you know, and then like everything's just immediately fine because the rebels won, right? Like
Right.
it's not necessarily, I think, like a critique of that, but it's just like the point of the movie Brazil is definitely like shit's bleak and it's gonna stay bleak. And this is perhaps like a cautionary tale, if nothing else. So, and that's to me, that's very compelling, right? It's compelling, it's consistent, it's what makes the movie interesting. And when the studios saw the movie, they were like, ooh, this ending,
It's a bit dark.
Bleak.
Yeah.
So what if we just take off this little like ironic coda reveal and we make it so that this whole surrealist dream sequence is literally happening in the context of the story. And they like released that, and that version is now known like derisively as the Love Conquers All version.
Okay.
So like, listen, the history of cinema is the history of like
Censorship.
the people who were in charge, like censorship, but specifically like the people in charge like really fucking not like getting the point, and like not getting to the point to the point that they are like performing the role of the villain in the movie they've just watched.
Yeah, and the whole thing about movie producers is like, and people who control the film industry is like, they're not artists. They're rich people. So they have no, they're like, they become those villains that film is parodying. It's interesting because film has such a history of parodying those people and like exposing them. And yet those are the people that like control the way that we view film.
100%. And I mean, I think that, you know, we could come up with a list of examples of movies where the studio changed the ending or made like a major change to the movie in a way that clearly ruined the movie. But this is, I think, maybe the most egregious example of this in the history of cinema, because
it's the most that I can think of.
It's taking something that is intended, like the ending sequence is intended to send a very specific message, and to like remove the irony from that sequence not only changes the message, but it changes the entire movie, and it's beyond cheapens it.
Yes.
And so I think that it just is like the most egregious example that I can think of execs like just having like no like art in their souls.
Right.
Basically.
Yeah, and being the fucking villain.
Luckily, and being the fucking villains. Now, luckily, Gilliam is, you know, Gilliam was prepared to just be like he doesn't care if they think that he's difficult. He's like not going to make this concession. So, as you talked about last time in the history of this movie, like, Gilliam figured out a way for people to see the movie as intended, and its legacy is very much like as intended.
Yes.
But it's like it is really fascinating to think about what, if you've seen this movie, like what it would have been like to see it thinking that was the ending.
Right. I think I probably would have walked out of the theater and been like, well, that was crap. Because I would have felt like the entire thing had been negated at the end of the film. I'm obviously much prefer the dark torture ending. I mean, it's very disturbing. Like it's one of the more disturbing endings of a film that I've seen. But also there's like kind of a weird hopeful element to it, because you're like, well, they can never destroy your imagination. They can never occupy your mind. Like that is the only place that he can go to, his fantasy life, to get away
Totally.
from this torture. I wonder how they were torturing him. Like what happened? Yeah.
Yeah, we don't see any like
It's not graphic at all.
On the outside of his body.
No.
I mean, there's also go ahead.
I was going to say that fits with the movie because it's just not a very things are more implied in the film than you actually see.
Totally. Yeah, I wonder like if we think about it in the vein of Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, it almost would be like he just like went mad instantly. That they actually never did torture him.
He just like lost it.
That he was just like, this is it. Like,
yeah, this is too much to deal with.
This is it for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Brazil. We did it.
Brazil. Yeah. I mean, I think that's what I wanted to say about that.
Yeah. Wow. Really like long movie full of just absolute like rich text. Like it's just impossible to not talk about that movie for as long as the movie is.
Did you so let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
So you were saying that you saw this for the first time for this podcast and you were kind of like, I don't think I really like this. Did talking about it make you like it more?
Well, I think talking about it made me I think I always appreciated it. Like even when I was like, I don't know if I love this, I was like, I can really see all of these great things in it and why people love it. I don't think talking about it made me like it more, but I definitely feel like I can maybe dislike it for reasons that are smart instead of reactionary. Like I have very pointed reasons why I don't love this movie. And instead of just like, there's too many men, which just like always my like stupid go-to if I don't like something. So I definitely, and I feel like talking to somebody who is passionate about the movie definitely helps me appreciate it more also.
Totally.
My roommate loves this movie and we were kind of arguing about why she loves it and why I didn't love it, and she just loves like how accurate the whole bureaucracy is, because that is what it feels like when you're trying to get something done. That part is very on the money for me. Like don't hold out too long, it'll affect your credit report. Like that's really funny. I like those moments. And
totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I like it as a message about like one takeaway for me from the movie is if you have to live in an oppressive society, you gotta have friends, man. If you don't have friends, you're gonna lose your fucking mind.
Like Sam. Yeah. Yeah. No, you have to have friends and you have to have a backbone and a set of values. Also, like you can't just go with the flow of whatever this insane society is telling you. You have to be okay with. You have to have your own mind, basically. I mean, it's just like a very like white dudes take on classicism and oppression, right? Like we said, like I was saying last time, like, you know, it's like, oh, well, they can never take your imagination. And it's like, okay, well, sort of. I mean, like, if you're a white dude, like, that might be easy for you. But actually, they have, like, the entities that be have effectively colonized, like, the queer and, like, BIPOC imagination. Like, we struggle as people to have fantasies and, like, inner lives that are not dictated by white supremacy and patriarchy. Like,
that's the fucking truth, man.
Right? Like, even, you know, our own fantasies we chastise ourselves for. Like, why is this, you know, why am I thinner in this fantasy? Why am I whiter in this fantasy? You know, like, it's it's easy to say that if, like, we're all oppressed living in this world, like, even straight white men. However, like, it's easy to say that when, like, however oppressed you are, everything that exists still caters for you. So think about, like, how much that would suck being as oppressed as you are, and also, like, everyone fucking hates you and, like, hates how you look, like, literally just because you exist. So, like, that's
word,
right. So I think that is, like, my main issue with this movie is it's just, like, a very kind of as a, like, a radical anarchist person, like, I deeply relate and to the sentiments expressed. I just feel that there isn't a deeper analysis, which is okay. Like, a movie doesn't have to do everything, but yeah, just, you know.
And also we can take those messages that, you know, even, and you know, what you're saying, like, also goes back to the idea of, like, Terry Gilliam had to deal with all of the censorship of this movie, but, like, he also somehow figured out a way to, like, make the movie that he wanted to make.
Exactly.
And, like, and have it ended up being, like, a revered classic without having to ultimately, like, make those concessions.
Exactly.
So, like, maybe we can, like, take a cue from both the, like, history of the creation and production of this movie, and then also the movie's themes that, like, your fantasies are yours and they belong to you and no one can take them away from you. And then we could, like, maybe apply them to, like, less oppressive fantasies.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think that's a good note to end on. Tina, where can everyone find you and your work on social media and other places?
So the number one thing that I would want people to check out is my comic book. It's called Safe Sex. You can either find it by searching for the comic Safe Sex by Tina Horn, or it is sometimes spelled SFSX. And volume 1 of Safe Sex, which is called Protection, is available now as of late 2020, wherever books and comic books are sold. Please contact your local book or comic book store and ask them about it. And so, yeah, and if you like the movie Brazil, chances are you will like Safe Sex, my sci-fi sex rebel comic book series.
I mean, your comic book is like if Brazil was written by a queer freak.
I mean, that's literally what it is. So
yeah, so that'll, you know.
But thank you for saying that. And then my podcast is Why Are People Into That? And you can listen to that wherever you pod. And my social media is at Tina Horn's Ass. Yeah. That's TINASASS. TINAHORN. I fucked up my own fucking
Tina
handle.
Horn's Ass.
TINAHORNSASS. And I am so fucking dyslexic. And I can't even spell my own goddamn name. And, you know, that's me on Twitter and Instagram. And then my website is tinahorn.net. And that's me. That's who I am. That's what I do. That's the entirety of my existence.
Great. And you know where to find me, as always. Girls Guts Giallo on Twitter and Instagram. Join my Patreon, patreon.com/girlsgutsgiallo. If you
Great
like
Patreon.
Huh?
Great Patreon.
Oh,
great
so
content.
much. Thank you so much. And yeah, we do 2 live viewings a month, and I try to release 2 episodes a month, and then I also release a newsletter and a bonus episode. And I'm a little bit late on my bonus content from August, so to reward you all, I posted a video of my date and I drowning each other. So check that out to tide you over. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye, Tina. Thanks
for having me back.